what's up? It's Vanessa from Double XO. We're with Shaheem and Rahman for the Moments of Clarity podcast.
The Fun Squad. Everything is cool. Maintaining. It's definitely a different lifestyle, but being productive, still working every day, and using the wonders of technology.
Yes, how much you think the industry is going to change now that Zoom is such a big part of it?
I like Zoom. It's very cool. I've been having great experiences with it. It's definitely going to change a lot. It definitely saves the cost of flying somewhere to do some things. But it's still nothing like the in-person feel. Going to a set, going to a location, and really doing an interview. So I still think that's going to be prevalent.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
it's something that's going to change, how we normally go about business, because people are definitely like, there's definitely been a magnifying glass, obviously, over how these things are being done, like, interviews, and we've done interviews over Skype plenty of times before. Like that's nothing new. But the fact to say that you can go that avenue and it's convenient, and there's a financial savings factor into it, those things like that. That's going to be interesting how that moves forward. The bigger thing is really going to be the effect on concerts and shows and shit like that. Because like LeBron said, he's like, who wants to perform in front of an empty venue?
Right.
That's part of the fuel, for them, and like, pump up their adrenaline. And I don't see how, they're talking about like the early phases of beginning to reopen specific regions, etc. But it's like, what exactly does that mean? And they said it'll get to a point where like people can perform in front of a venue, an empty venue.
Right.
I don't know how many artists is like what changes the dynamic of their performance within doing that. And then they said, phase 2 would be something like having some people within the venues, but like social distancing, like 6 feet apart. You can't control that. You're not gonna have somebody in there being like, "Oh, you're 6 feet apart." Like the guy.
I know what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, the guys who's like in the photo pit, making sure you don't go there. Like their job now is to be like, "Oh, let's make sure you're 6 feet apart." And and also too, like especially with like festivals and stuff like that, a big part of the experience with those festivals is people jumping all over each other and being up against people and shit like that. I was just watching on ESPN. They were saying that I forgot, it's somewhere out of the country where they started playing baseball or whatever, and they was playing with an empty venue, and they had cardboard fans in all of the seats.
That's like
crazy. It was very creative, but it was kind of crazy.
That's like if you ever saw the movie from the 80s, I think it was Night of the Comet, where a comet came and wiped out most of the earth, and it was just a few people. They just was using like cardboard figures, and Will Smith did a little bit of that in I Am Legend as well. So let's hope it doesn't get to that over here in the US. But it's one of them things where it's so crazy because we actually do not have an answer. We do not have a date. It's like, it's no light at the end of the tunnel as of yet. Like, we know that eventually it will happen, but we don't know when. It could be a month, it could be 2 months. Like, we just don't know. So that's one of the things that's probably the most frustrating and one of the most scary. But I'm happy that we have options like this to keep us busy and connect with the people and connect with each other as well.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't have that.
Totally. I think it's interesting also for today's podcast. I think the idea of us discussing just how will hip hop change is such an interesting topic. Because we don't know, but we do know there's an article going around about how people think LA is going to change, or Hollywood's going to change, on sets and stuff like that. I mean, we're not even thinking about what backstage at a show is going to be like. We're not even thinking about people traveling in cars together in groups, and how many people are in a caravan of dudes at the same time and what's safe. To my knowledge, the artists aren't even right now, the labels aren't even letting the artists travel. So we have to literally have the labels allow artists to start traveling again, or have that be allowed in their budget, and they have to lift things like that up, just like we have to have people go back to work. They've kind of got to be allowed to go back to work, unless it's an independent artist and it's different. But there's reading this article last night, I think it was like a Deadline website about California, and I wasn't keeping anything in mind about what it would go back to Hollywood that they were pointing out, like insurance, who's going to insure people. And so like the big part of it was like, who's going to insure people, or what insurance is going to be that people could get together and be on the set of a music video and be at a show and go on a tour and have the potential to get COVID. And how the insurance agencies are going to want you to waive your rights. And this isn't, set in stone yet, but that insurance companies want you to waive your rights to say, I will not hold you responsible if I get COVID, because I know that I'm putting myself at that risk by getting on this video set, by going to this, this tour or whatever. So it's this kind of wild time that we're thinking about, okay, what it means to kind of interact with some rappers and then go on stage at shows. But there's so many more elements even of it that we're not even keeping in mind. To how did the record labels all go back and everybody have group meetings and people come from the outside to sign new artists in those meetings, and everybody interacting with each other, when everyone has the potential to be asymptomatic and still have it for right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with LA production, like, me and Shot, obviously, like, for the, and you too, like, for the past like 20 years. And we had an LA office probably like for the past like 6 or so years, and it was interesting, the labor laws between like production in LA and production in New York. Like, we would hire somebody literally to do the same thing, and it was always like way more intensive, like way more just like teed up, as far as the support that what they have for their crews, and all the individuals, the sets, etc., when it was coming from out of LA. So I'm sure that they're very like, really protective, like right now, with like this situation, because again, they can't really put their finger on it, and
Strip clubs.
yeah, that's their biggest concern, because there's just no way that they can do all this stuff that what they're doing without having like a gathering of people together.
Right.
So
And
like
then
all
how
those
do we go back?
think about all those movie houses.
Yeah. I was hearing about something with South Korea, and I might be getting this wrong again because we read so much about it, you don't remember where you read what. But I think they were saying when people start having gatherings, they're going to allow 5 for weddings and 10 for funerals. People, so like they're, as we go back, are they even going to say, well, you're allowed 20 groups of people together, 30 groups of people together? Like, are we going to see the numbers increase of that as much time goes by, and the difference between July and October is how many people can be in a space at once? And then what happens? Are they going to see people take risks and do things that involve bigger groups? And then can you get in trouble for that? Are you really getting in trouble if there's a music video that has 50 people in it and you're only supposed to have 30? I don't even know how this works. Cuomo sending the dogs after you, and the cops after you because you had a music video and you have to prove how many people. Like, I don't even know what it means. The LA thing was saying that anybody who goes on a TV or a movie set is going to have to go on probably an hour and a half early, just to have a pre-corona kind of check, where everybody's going to be checked for symptoms, be checked for their temperature, and that you're not going to be able to go anywhere into big groups unless you're checked every day or every couple of days on if you have it or not. Does that mean you have to be tested and we have to hold a whole other level of tests?
That's what they're going to have to start doing.
Yeah.
The shit could get so crazy where it's like, if it does get to a point where they start talking about having concerts and stuff and allowing people in, like, they might have to do some type of strategy, like some level of confirmation that these people are not
Right.
infected. If
Or
that
it's
means
right.
giving them the test right then and there.
Right. And but I don't really know enough now. Did the test have that quick a turnaround? I mean, everyone I know who's gotten tested had to wait a week to 10 days to get their results.
Well, I saw in the news where they said that they're developing new tests that you'll get the results back within 10, 15 minutes.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
and yeah, and I just saw like today they were talking about they're gonna have these tests where well it starts over in the UK, but it's $1.50 for a test, and they could find out within like 10 minutes. So
Yeah. See, it's interesting through all of this madness and all of this chaos. Um, One of the people who really seems to have figured things out is Vince McMahon. Like it's like the wrestling is still going on. Like he just did a 2-night WrestleMania. They just in Florida. They just deemed WWE essential workers, so they're actually gonna be
Really? Wow.
they're gonna be going to work and they're gonna be uh, doing the wrestling programs live. And Trump has also just appointed McMahon as one of the advisors as to how to get the economy back going.
yeah,
Surreal.
yeah. So that's part of the news conference that's happening today on Friday. Where he appointed like a bunch of different people, like the head of Bank of America, the head of Chase, and the head of Wells Fargo, etc. Like he has an entire board who's coming in and consulting with them. I thought it was interesting too. I saw something today. When we mentioned about festivals and shows and stuff, and artists moving around and travel. It was one of the airlines. I don't want to speak out of turn, but one of the airlines, they said that they need confirmation. Like they're doing testing at the actual airport.
At the airport. Wow.
Yeah, and that's pretty real.
I read
As if customs wasn't enough to
enough,
deal with.
right. I read last night that Steven Soderbergh, the director of Contagion, which was all about a pandemic and a virus, has been put on a board by the Directors Guild to oversee Hollywood coming back and all the parameters they're going to have for that. So, I mean, it's interesting that they picked the director, and I'm sure he's got more accomplishments than that, but the director of Contagion to be the Hollywood authority on it, and I'm sure with some assistance too, but it's even interesting to see who's being empowered during all of this. And I wonder if we'll see that more from hip hop, of people who become kind of at the forefront of making some decisions or speaking on behalf of the rappers and the artists of what they're comfortable with, in some sort of kind of ambassador kind of role or something, or, getting, it's not really getting the hip hop economy, but getting the record industry going again. If you're doing that in Hollywood, does that become that you need somebody to do that with the record industry also,
Well, the thing about the record industry, the great thing is that it's continuing. Like I don't know how accurate the numbers are, but they said the baby did over 25 million streams.
Yeah, yeah.
No, matter of fact, I saw that on XXL, so I know it's accurate.
Thank you.
I know it's accurate.
I saw a lot of people. It was mixed reviews on the album.
Yeah, he's churning out projects in just a very fast pace, and I think he's one of the people that I don't know if he's focused on making like the classic album, but if you could put these projects out and you could catch like one or two songs off the joint, you good. You know what I'm saying? The thing is gonna sell. You'll have a hit single or two, and then move right on to the next one. Like he's really showing. Um, well, he's doing it on a major level scale. We've had people on an independent level, do things like that before. Like I talked to Eric Bellinger the other day, the R&B singer and writer who's, he's written for Chris Brown and he's written for Usher and a lot of great people. And Eric has put out 20, I think it's 23 or 26 projects, in the past like 6-7 years.
He's got a great energy. He's a good dude.
Yeah, he drops like 3 projects a year, man. So if you drop in 3 projects and if you can make the music, you gotta have the output you gotta have the talent to actually make the music. But if you could drop 1 or 2 projects a year and have a hit single off that, you'll be going.
Was
You
Eric the singer who did all the what's the headset?
the virtual
Oculus,
reality,
Huh?
the Oculus.
the virtual reality
Yeah,
thing.
the virtual reality. Yeah, was that him with that project?
I think it was him.
Yeah, I was just remembering because what's it called? That was it was interesting. He
So
came up.
let me ask you how, if there's no real timetable for when like, people could start having like concerts and stuff like that. And like somebody said, even if there was to be like, hey, by the end of May, it's gonna open back up and you can start going to shows and people's gonna start putting together shows, like, would you feel comfortable going? You know,
That's a great question. I didn't see. I have no idea.
'cause I don't think I will. We have we got a space that we frequent out of in Chinatown, a WeWork space. And again, it's right in Chinatown. No disrespect to anybody, but I just don't feel comfortable. Like even being in that type of setting. And so it's like you have these virtual concerts. Like how entertaining is that gonna be? Like how long are you gonna sit down and really watch? Not to dismiss it, but how long if they say like uh I don't know, Rolling Loud, or if they said that South by Southwest has like a showcase or something that's going to be on your computer. It's going to be like 90 minutes. 90 minutes. You're going to sit down and watch a performance. Like, how engaging is those things like that, especially when it's starting to pick up even more?
It just depends. I mean, this weekend that just passed, I was tuned in watching RZA and DJ Premier.
That's an event, right? That's different.
But even then, I could almost listen to it and not even watch it as much. If I put the phone down, I could listen to them talk and listen to them battle, and I didn't have to watch it. I mean, I was watching part of it, but then I was also cleaning the house at a time and listening to it.
But the difference with something like that, what I'm getting at, so that's the only time you're gonna see something like that with them.
Right.
Now with these concerts, you're gonna be seeing this artist here. Like iHeart has started to do these things where every weekend they're doing like these full concerts. They have artists on there, and then they have like Global Citizens Festival this weekend where there's like similar artists who's gonna be there. And there's something else like next weekend where there's like a myriad of, how the festivals go. It's reoccurring acts,
Yeah.
just at different places. So you have to really make an event out of it, which is something like what you mentioned, where you can only exclusively see that for that time only.
I think it just depends, maybe what the setting is. Like I mean, it's very interesting to see some of these people in their homes do different things, but like so far the stuff in their homes, it hasn't been to me like a full-on performance. Like John Legend is singing and he's sort of just vibing, but
right, Anthony Hamilton.
Yeah. You gotta be interested to see where they really set up like a full-on performance. Like I could see somebody like Usher, he's promoting new music now. I could see him doing something like that. I could see like a Jay-Z or somebody, setting up like a full-on performance. Even somebody from like the rock and pop world, doing something like that, like Justin Bieber or something like that, doing like a real full-on performance. And that's going to be interesting, but it has to be the star power. I think the baby could pull something off like that if he says, hey, I'm gonna be performing brand new records from my new project. And I think it could be done. It just what's the production value of it. And again, it's like me and Rahman, we've been talking to people constantly about doing these performances. It's like even if the artist is with it, it's still limitations to what you can do as far as the production value. So it'll be interesting. We got to think, but I think hip hop has the most creative people in the world, man, and I think we could figure it out.
Let me ask you, if they, assuming all goes as they're trying to plan it, if they open everything up and people start scheduling shows, like, would you go to a show within the next, let's say, 2 weeks? Right now, like, would you go to a show
No.
in New York at like SOBs and like the second week of May?
I don't think so.
No way.
I don't. Yeah, it's still not
But
safe.
what's cynical, we've also been to a lot of shows. Now let's take you as a young person who hasn't been to as many shows, as a diehard fan of somebody and hasn't experienced meeting rappers and, interacted with them. I mean, you become a little bit jaded when you work with people in an industry and stuff where you've got kids who maybe, and kids could be anybody's age, somebody who hasn't experienced artists the same degree we have and hasn't been to as many live shows as we have, that they might just say, hell, I really want to go because I haven't experienced or seen this person perform. So I think, we definitely can answer the question for ourselves personally, but we aren't the norm for the regular fans just because of the access we've been able to have. If you never went to a show again, that would be horrible. But imagine the great, remember all the great performances you've seen over the years and got to be a part of, and not a part of, but been there for and everything. That, if you never went to one again, you still have an amazing list of stories that you can tell. There's a lot of people out there who haven't been able to see their favorite artist yet, like we have 5 times or 10 times, So I think that person's going to look at it a bit differently than us. Also, it's about what you have to risk. Are you going home and taking it to a kid, or your kid or your parents? Who are you going to be living with in the next 2 weeks, in the next month? We might be quarantined with someone now that we normally aren't, but if you're permanently with your family or your young child or stuff, and Rahman, you can speak on that, there's a bigger risk of what you're bringing it home to if you do get sick. So I think there's a lot of weird things mixed in there. But for me right now, I'm not going to any concert anytime soon.
When you say anytime soon, like
I have no idea what the timeline is. I don't even know when we go back to the office. I have no idea. We're at the whim of a virus, I have no idea I have no idea when we do anything, when do we do an interview in person again, when do we sit next to each other in an office and talk to each other in a meeting? When do we sit with a group of a staff talking to each other? When do I go up and pop by a label and visit people again? When do you get on a plane to even travel for any of this stuff? I mean, our whole way of life of what we did professionally has drastically changed. And I have no idea if and when it goes back. The biggest thing I'm waiting for is the face masks. When is it all the designer face masks going to come out? When are the statement masks, customizing, all that stuff? Everybody's got their crew, and their crew have all custom,
Yeah, Kanye is late, man.
Yeah.
Kanye had
early and late.
Yeah, with the mask, man. So
he gonna let Virgil and Drake beat him, and he's gonna be pissed.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, that's a new element to customize. You used to have a bandana with your logo on it. I mean, I could see somebody's album coming out the next few months, and you get a promo package, and it's a mask with their album promo on it.
Yeah, like, it's crazy.
How the mask is going to play a role, and how much we have to wear a mask within a city or not, in our everyday life or not. Like, will we be getting up every day and a mask is part of our wardrobe? Living in New York, like we all do, and people living in California. If you live somewhere else, you might not have the same mask thing. But for us, or for a lot of the record industry, is that how your meetings go? Do you not meet in person because it's Zoom?
I know
a lot of rappers who are germaphobes. When are they not going to be germaphobes?
Yeah, it trips me out because like I said, like because of this industry that we're in, we obviously travel a lot. So
right,
we're always on a plane or something, and I can recall so many times for like the past probably like 2-3 years where I would always be in like an airport at some point and see like
bumping into a rapper.
Asian people with masks on and shit, or be on the plane. And I was like, oh, they're overdoing it. What the fuck they got a mask on now? And now I'm looking back and I'm like,
you were way ahead.
Did y'all know something?
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, mask.
Always had a mask on in public.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. You mentioned Kanye, so I have to ask, You know, he did. You know, obviously, we could talk about Kanye all the time. You know, but I just. It's just so fucked up. And, you know, again, this is why I hate when media outlets, that's why I really appreciate Double XL, and there's only like one or two other ones like outside of that, you know, who's really still keeping the integrity of the culture, who really represents the culture. But it's like, GQ's really gonna put out a fucking article right now, have Kanye on the cover of a magazine and all this shit going on, and you're gonna have him in there talking about he's voting for Trump? Even though we know where that was going, it's like, you gonna do that shit right now?
You did
all the shit we going through?
We just put Future out on the cover of the magazine. And we did it all before the Corona stuff hit. We even shipped the magazine before the Corona stuff really hit. And it was hard because the Future has an album coming out that's called Life is Good. And life ain't that good right now. And it was hard to figure out the right way to promote, you know, all the content was made before this all happened, or on the cusp of when we're like, wash your hands, okay, you know, I mean, like very, you know, in very beginning, end of February, beginning of March, things were way different then. And we were trying to figure out the best way, because you still have to put your magazine out, you still made the content, you still, you know, have this coming together, and you're still in business. But how do you go and promote something that is about life is good when life isn't that good right now? And to that point, I don't even know if Future's calling it Life is Good anymore. I mean, it's about his life being good, of course. But that was something I was very cognizant of and thinking about during that time, was that, you know, what's the tone of what we're promoting when the cover could literally be put out the day that 2,000 Americans die, you know? And it's hard because you're mixing your business and what you have to do there with the reality of what the news is going on a daily basis. And with business, you have to plan a lot. So I say this to say, I mean, I don't know how GQ was hold to a certain thing that they had to put the content out. They couldn't delay it. You know, they're going to get print issues that are going to go to the newsstands. They worked on it X amount of time ago, and they can't control that the print issues are going over there. And everybody wants, you know, Kanye to speak on Trump. Versus
but how
to put it out at all. You know, it's very hard when you're dealing with print, and you're dealing in particular, and you're dealing with publishing, and then this pops up, which is moving faster than anything you're working on. You know.
So how does that work? So that's a very interesting point. How is like magazines working right now? Like if they're on a schedule and the shit still comes out?
There's not much of a schedule, and I you know, we come out 4 times a year. Just purely of how the hip hop audience works, it's more online. You know, there are some magazines that are still coming out 10 to 12 issues a year. So I would be curious, you know, how the production's working for that, because you can't do anything in person, which magazines are very based off of. I mean, everything we do is still very based off of being with people in person, you know, not just phone interviews and stuff, or Zoom interviews. So I don't know exactly how it's working with something that comes out on a 10 to 12 month schedule, you know, 10 to 12 times out of a year, because I don't know exactly how the printing press and the circulation is working and all of that, you know, of getting things to the newsstands. It's such kind of an uncharted situation. You know, the 2009 recession, you know, the economy was messed up, but you weren't dealing with the fact that you literally couldn't work on your craft, you know? I can't send someone to go do an interview right now, and I can't send someone to go to an interview that you might need photos for, but there are no photos. So you can't do it without photos, but you can't go take photos right now. So I would assume it's publication by publication, brand by brand based, but we're all dealing with a very weird timeline of, we've never been halted in making things before. You know, you get halted because of a financial situation, but we're literally halted because of a health epidemic. That's just unprecedented, you know? So we're all kind of figuring out, I believe, how it works in the moment, you know?
You know, my biggest question is, ironically, Nas and Future have the same manager, and we all know Nas did an album called Life is Good.
You know, I never thought about that.
Damn, I didn't even think about that.
I never thought about that.
That ever come up in the conversation? I just was looking up because it feel like Nas just put out Life is Good, but
That's right, but it's a good. How many years ago?
8 years ago, 2012.
Great album.
That's a lifetime in hip hop
Yeah.
now, right?
I
Great
guess
album. One of Nas's best albums. It was a great album.
yeah, I guess it's time.
That's a very valid Twitter question.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring that to the manager.
Hit Anthony up. Shout out to Anthony. Anthony, what do you think?
Shout out to Anthony.
Who do y'all think? What was y'all take from RZA and Premier?
I loved it. I loved it even more than I thought I was gonna love it.
Yeah.
I like
necessary, you know.
Yeah, I like, and this I say this with all due respect. I like seeing Premier like there. I think that a lot of people are looking for these battles, and it's like it's one person that's like, yeah, they're definitely gonna do it. But then it's like the person you want to see them up against, you're like, I don't know if they'll do it. Like a lot of people's like Q-Tip and Kanye. Like, Q-Tip will probably do it, but Kanye.
Yeah.
Same thing with like the JD and the Puff thing. You know what I'm saying? So when the concept had came up about Premier and RZA, I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure Premier will do it. I was like, but I don't know if RZA will do it. Because RZA he's a big deal. He's knee deep in Hollywood, like big time. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that he got on and that he did it
and got into it,
that shit was amazing.
Yeah, that's right. That was the best part. And plus, that mixed with the camaraderie of them each liking each other's hits. So we're calling them battles.
It was very respectful.
Two producers showcasing their work and genuinely being fans of each other, which to me was, as corny as it sounds, was like the coolest part. Like Premier was requesting or wanted to see songs from RZA, and RZA wanted songs from Premier. Like they knew each other's catalogs, not because you were like, oh, you made that and I didn't, was because they were fans of it too, which I thought was the coolest part,
Yeah, and the whole thing too with, I listened to a lot of, before this happened and after listening to, feedback, what people were saying, they were like, 100% like Primo and Pete Rock was the man. You know what I'm saying? Like you had to have a Pete Rock beat, you had to have a Primo beat. Like that's how the shit really was. And then, but it's like the genuine part about like RZA and even like Kanye, they're just so different. Their sound is just so different. They introduced like this whole new era. And, for me, like I can never say one is better than the other, but I think RZA just deserves like a spot in like hip hop, like royalty for the fact that not only did he create something really, really dope, but he manufactured like the whole vision, like with all those guys getting solo
deals and all the different labels,
and it was all popping, and it was a huge movement. And then to be able to bring them back and do an album, there's been nobody else who's done that. Yeah. Matter of fact, everybody else started biting on them after that, like every single body. Primo, he did. It's like you can't just. Gangstar albums alone, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't even have to play nothing else. Gangstar albums alone is just like, that shit can go up against like Wu-Tang shit like forever. It's different time periods, so if you hear it now, you're like, oh, this is cool, whatever. But if you go back in time when those shits came out, like Gangstar was just as popping, if not more popping than Wu-Tang when those records was coming out. And he just had Guru. RZA had like 8, like it was like 9 of these niggas. They was kind of like cheating to, you know what I'm saying, like to a degree. But the shit that what RZA did is just like, and the sound that what he created is, that shit was just like, that shit was magical. There's just I've never been so impressed with anybody. Like he's my favorite producer of all time.
I kind of got the feeling.
Yeah, hands down.
Yeah, I got, I definitely got RZA and Premier in my top 5. I know Mount Rushmore is only 4, but if I had,
there are no rules anymore, Shaw.
Yeah, they definitely in my top 5. RZA and Primo. The stories that they told between playing the music, I think was just as good as hearing the music and reliving the times. I feel like they're both top 5, like I said. Puff said Drake is in his top 5. Yeah, I think, how y'all feel about Drake? Does he belong in that top 5 or even in the conversation? Top 5?
I'm not a top fiver. I'm not fun with this one. I've always been not anti top five, but I always take it that everyone's kind of, not to be bitchy, but everyone's got their own thing that they base it off of. You know what I mean? Of what you think that makes a top five. So I was always never big on reviews or big lists like that, which I know hip hop totally responds to, because we all have kind of a different way we base it off of. You know what I mean? We're not using the same scale. So I'm not good with this question.
Yeah, I like. First of all, I like how Sha tried to sneak away from the producer conversation, being like, these two guys are in the top five, but you ain't say nothing about who the other people were who you was talking.
My other people, I would have to Dr. Dre, of course. I mean Neptunes, they just killed it. Damn, that's 4, right?
Yeah, I mean Timbaland.
I got Tim and Swiss. I got Tim and Swiss, so I guess that's 6.
I mean, you got Tim, Swizz, you got Puff. Like you can't leave.
Gotta have Puff in there. So
that's why I hate fives or top lists, because you can never you always leave somebody out.
Yeah, I never, for me,
Kanye in the top 10 too.
Yeah, Kanye. I mean, for me, like, I'll never say and be like, oh, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But there's definitely like a select few who you'll always hear spill from off the tongue, and definitely Primo, RZA, Kanye, Pete Rock, Swizz Beats, who's crazy. I think Swizz, like again, Swizz, Premier, Swizz, Kanye, and RZA are 3 guys who really created like this crazy sound of some shit that you've never heard before, and that's the real genuine part that I really appreciate about them. And not only that, like if you think about it too, they worked with like their individual camps. Like they didn't really work with that many people until later. Like Kanye was all about himself and just Jay-Z. Fucking Swizz was all about the Rough Riders. You know what I'm saying? Like DMX. Great. Like he gave DMX his sound. You know what I'm saying? And that's huge. And the same thing with RZA and Wu-Tang. And that shit, those are pillars in hip hop.
I was happy to see Manny Fresh get his just due.
Manny Fresh too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fresh. He didn't have 9 MCs, but he had 4. Well, I mean, including him and Baby, I guess that's 6. So, what he did with Cash Money being that signature sound for, volumes of work that they did, and
that's what I'm saying. They put out mad big timers, Cash Money.
Them records were going.
Then creeping into he finally creeped into working with Jay-Z, working with other artists, that took years before he made it out there, and how many hits. But remember, KLC and Beats by the Pound were very important too.
Yes.
And the Medicine Man
Beats by the Pound was.
But sometimes, Beats, and I always think they get a bit slept on in all of it because it was, the era before, not the era, but a little bit before Manny Fresh or pre-Manny Fresh and No Limit and all. So I'd love to be able to see, KLC weigh in, or, even Zaytoven, the amount of hits Zaytoven has had over the years. And he's not the same level as those guys because he hasn't been around as long. But there's a lot of different guys out there over the time. And especially when you're from New York, you kind of forget a little bit of some of what was going on in the South in a certain time period,
I mean, Zaytoven was at the top of the Gucci and fucking.
Now that's somebody.
How big is that? And you know how much those two movements sparked? Like that's huge.
You mentioned Zaytoven. Like if Zaytoven got into a battle, I think he would be a real sleeper champion. Like Zay got a lot of street classics under his belt.
Right.
He got some chart toppers too, but he got a lot of just keeping the streets alive records under his belt with everybody. So jump into a battle with Zaytoven, you better be prepared.
All right, let's wrap it up because we've been going for a minute. But my question for you guys before we go is, what would be the battle that you would want to see the most next? Young, old, super producer, new guy, but what, I mean, what, we haven't heard of a new one yet. I'm sure they're trying to put something together. What would you love to see next, regardless of how big or small the producer is?
Me personally, is it just producers? I would want to see an artist.
I mean, we haven't really. I mean, it's Babyface and Teddy Riley. It's rumors.
Great.
And that's gonna be great. We haven't seen two rappers. I mean, there was, I think, Rich the Kid and Trippie Redd. We haven't seen rappers go against each other, and I go against each other. I guess it's loose there, but you haven't seen, Drake versus Wayne. That'd be pretty amazing.
Would be
so yeah, I'd love to see all of that. But I feel like the producer thing is the thing that's happening, not the rappers as much. So you answer however you want.
I want to see the track. I want to see the track masters get in it.
Right.
Track masters and Hitman.
Oh my God. I'm like that might even be a little bit unfair. I'm like, should it be track masters and Irv? Queens.
Well, Puff said whoever wanted to team up, they could team up. But it was interesting if you looked on the gram yesterday. I don't know. I don't remember if it was Poker Tone. I think it was Tone that put track masters versus, and he just put dot meaning versus anybody.
Right.
And D dot Angeletti responded. He said Hitman.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about D dot. Right.
Yeah, so
track masters got Beyonce records, they got 50 records, they got Jay records, they got Shakira records. And
they got everybody.
I would love to see them get, and they've been so quiet. That's the other thing too. Like for so long, like they're not the type of guys that you really be seeing in the press and things like that. Like I'd love to see them get into it. Them and the Hitman would be pretty incredible. We gotta call Rich Nice, get him on this.
I know, I'm calling Rich right after we get off.
Yeah, you have to facilitate this stuff. You gotta help out. You should call Versus and tell them that you want to get involved.
Don King, the situation.
Oh, maybe if Hitman is too big of a collective, Track Masters versus Neptunes.
I think Hitman might be just a little bit. It's a lot. It's like Guru going against all the niggas from Wu-Tang.
Track Masters and Neptunes. That's two,
Do they have to be quarantined together in order to do it?
I mean, they might have to do it on.
They might have to, yeah. That technology's behind.
Yeah, they got to do it on Zoom.
Wait, doesn't Instagram let other people into the whole thing? You have a live and you let people in?
I've only seen it with two people. I haven't seen.
Yeah, me too. I don't think they can do it with more than two people. Well, they can do it in multiples of two people.
Right.
But they can't do it more than two people at a time. So that's the thing that's good about this. And YouTube started doing it also, where they have like 4 or 5 people who's on there now. So they should take it there. From the business perspective, again, I ain't trying to knock none of them. I just think it's interesting that they're all trying to do it. Not trying to, because they are on Instagram. And, there's no
build up your followers. You're not going to build up your Zoom followers.
Right. I guess this is why you give it up to them, because they're doing it for the culture, because they're clearly not making no money from off of it. See, like,
I don't think, but that's my next question is, if it was, nobody has this answer for me, and I don't even know to ask or what, but if this was the sponsor related to it, would they have to clear the rights to the songs?
Yes.
There was money related to it, right? So if Swizz and it's I assume a question, and maybe they've answered it, and I haven't read the interview yet, but if Swizz and Timbaland put it together and we're getting a check to put it together to make a brand look cool, and it was so-and-so brings you the versus battle of so-and-so, wouldn't they have to clear every one of those songs?
Yep.
So isn't the luxury of why we're getting away with it right now is there is no sponsor involved? It's just pure Instagram driven?
Yeah, but the thing with Instagram also is that even when it's not sponsored, you still have to clear it. Like, we've all gotten those little notices like, you don't have the rights to this music. And
Yeah, I wonder if IG's just letting that go right now.
But I think they are.
Because it's live, they're just letting it fly. I think it's so big, and it's just like putting them on the map. They like, yo, we're gonna let it rock. But aside from the track masters, I mean, obviously the ultimate joint is Jermaine Dupri and Puff.
That's your answer. Okay. All right. All right, and with that, we'll wrap it up until Monday. Back on Monday with our secret guest who fell through, and then we got Yachty next week, right? And a few other things, and hopefully people are over.
Stay safe.
Stay safe,
everyone.
Wash your hands and wash your head.
Bye, guys.
Bye.